From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine on this Monday. I hope you had a nice weekend. Back at it today, live and direct to you from here at News Channel 5 Plus. We've got the phone lines we're going to open up this morning on the topic of conversation, kicking things off. A controversial measure to pass an ordinance dealing with immigration here in Metro Nashville. You've likely heard about it. There have been a lot of stories. That's already made its way through not one, but two readings passing in the Metro Council, with one more to come in about a week and a half or so, the final vote on this, and a lot of opinions along this way. Some folks say, well, this is going to make us more like a sanctuary city. The co-sponsors of this say it's not going to legally make us a sanctuary city, but it does address some of the issues with how immigrants are handled here in the city of Nashville. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to open up the phone lines. I know many of you have strong opinions one way or the other on that at 737-7587. And we're going to talk this morning with Metro Councilman at Large, Bob Mendez, one of the sponsors of this plan for the ordinance. Nice to have you on this morning, sir.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. And obviously, in the minds of some, a polarizing issue. You know, as you say, as you sat down with me before the show started, at least your experience so far, you're hearing a lot of support from the folks at least calling your office. I'm sure you've had some detractors as well, but what's your sense right now?
Well, I'm hearing more support than opposition. I mean, we know from national politics that immigration issues can be very polarizing.
Sure.
I think the majority of voters in Davidson County would be in favor of this measure.
Yeah, all right. Well, I want to say a couple of things here. We did invite some other council members who have a different opinion on this to come on. We're not able to make it. We did not hear back from some of them. Of course, we did have Sheriff Darren Hall, and I'll ask you about him on last week, and he talked about, you know, he's not sure if this ordinance passes, if it's something even he would abide by. We also want to remind you, you can call in here 737-7587, but we are also streaming live on newschannel5.com on Facebook. If you want to comment to us there, I'm just kind of hooking it up right now, and we can take any of your questions or comments if you'd like on Facebook as well. If you would, give me a sense right now and spell out for folks. I know there's some misconceptions out there. I can go through it, but you're the sponsor. What essentially would this do? And then if you would follow that up with why you think it legally does not meet the definition of sanctuary city, but what would your ordinance do if it passes?
Sure. I view it as a public safety measure. 12% of people inside Davidson County are foreign born. Some are citizens, some are not. Many families, hundreds of families in Nashville, have members who are citizens and non-citizens. And there's growing evidence that in the new era that we're in of federal immigration enforcement, that people are getting confused between city and local and federal governments and just avoiding all contact with government. That plays out in a way that's bad for everybody in the city. When kids don't get immunized because their parents don't want to take them to get immunized because they don't want to deal with the government, we're all less safe. When people don't want to report crimes, we're all less safe. So what this bill does is let everybody know in the city, citizens and not, that we're going to live up to every obligation we have under federal and state law, but beyond that, we're going to focus on local government and let federal government professionals deal with federal immigration issues.
Okay, so, and I'll try to read some of this from my understanding on what it would do more specific. Metro Nashville would not be able to use local money, resources, or facilities to assist in enforcing federal immigration laws, or to share information about a person's custody status or court dates unless there's a warrant.
And every provision in this says unless otherwise required by federal or state law. And that's important for whether we're considered a quote-unquote sanctuary city. There's a very specific definition by the federal government. The Trump administration's new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, has issued an opinion about what it takes to be a sanctuary city, and it's willfully ignoring federal law that gets you to be a sanctuary city. And this ordinance very specifically says the #1 priority, follow and obey all state and federal law. Beyond that, that we would exercise our discretion to not use our resources on federal issues.
All right, so if you would then, how would that change what's being done right now? Say, for instance, with regard to the Sheriff's Department, which I think if Sheriff Hall has brought in someone here who's an undocumented immigrant that's been, charged with the crime, be adjudicated here, he'll serve or she'll serve their time for that. And then if he's notified by federal agents that they're interested in this individual because of their immigration status, he sometimes will hold them and pass them over. In fact, he did that with 500 some people last year. So how would that change him and his steps of what he would do?
What the ordinance would require is that the sheriff would be required to see a criminal arrest warrant from ICE before he held the person longer than the person owed time to Davidson County.
Okay.
And that makes it, that would be no different than any other law enforcement agency. You know, if the state of Arizona calls up the sheriff and say, hey, we got somebody, you got somebody that we want, hold them for us, the sheriff would, Metro would never just hold the person without seeing a criminal warrant first. And the ordinance would require the same thing of ICE. If ICE has a criminal warrant signed by a judge to hold on to somebody, we absolutely should hold on to that person and assist ICE to the fullest extent of our abilities. However, most of those 500, ICE did not produce a criminal warrant.
They were just what, immigration-related detention requests. A request, it's kind of, is it a courtesy that the sheriff's department then kind of obliged them with?
It has become a national practice. Okay. That yes, sheriff's offices comply with that. There is growing case law, a case out of Texas 10 days ago where that practice is called unconstitutional. San Antonio U.S. District Court, the idea of holding somebody longer than they owe time to the city with only a non-criminal request from ICE was deemed unconstitutional, violation of the Fourth Amendment by a San Antonio U.S. District Court on, I think it was June 8th.
Okay, and you may not be the one to answer this question. Maybe I should have asked the sheriff. It's a little confusing to me. Is there a reason in your mind why ICE does not submit just warrants for everyone they want?
This gets to be very complicated and very polarizing, but here's the deal. Under federal law, immigration offenses, except for one, are all civil offenses. Correct. And the only criminal offense is if you get deported and you sneak back in the country, then you've committed a federal crime. We in Nashville didn't create this situation, but the reality is that almost all immigration offenses are not criminal in nature. And so for ICE to produce a criminal warrant for somebody is hard because most immigration offenses aren't crimes. But the fact of the matter is cities shouldn't be holding people where there's no pending criminal charges.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting because, yeah, when I was talking to the sheriff last week and he expressed some reservations about whether he would abide by the ordinance, though he didn't say it was political. He says he's just not sure that ordinances passed by the city council apply to him since he's elected. But he was giving me the sense that, well, some of these folks that ICE wants might be wanted on federal charges for something more serious, and I shouldn't just be releasing them. I should hold them for them because you don't want to release these serious offenders back in. But you're saying that if there's something real serious, they're going to have a warrant.
I'm pretty sure that since the founding of the Republic, might be wanted for a criminal offense isn't good enough to incarcerate somebody.
I hear you talking on that. All right, so at this point, where do we stand in terms of...
Can I make one other point?
Go ahead.
The district attorney is also a constitutional officer that has a separate jurisdiction than Metro, and the district attorney has stated that this ordinance wouldn't have any impact on how he handles his job. Okay. So, you know.
Now, there are some questions right now about the legalities one way or the other of this ordinance, and we understand Metro Legal's still looking at this.
Correct.
I think some state lawmakers have requested that the Attorney General look at this as well in the state. You've said that you believe it's legal. It could end up in courts. When do we hope to hear from, say, Metro's legal on whether or not they deem this something that's legit?
I would expect to hear from Metro Legal sometime this week.
Before the third reading?
I think so, yes.
Before the third reading. And
the Attorney General, you know, I understand the long-standing practice is that they don't issue opinions on not yet passed municipal laws, but the fact that the Speaker of the House and the Speaker of the Senate have asked for an opinion, maybe they will go ahead and issue one.
Okay, as we go to a break, and we have a lot of comments coming in on Facebook, and we have some calls coming in, we'll get to those, and I'll try to share whatever thoughts you have. A lot of people still questioning whether or not, all right, is this making us a sanctuary city? A lot of people saying no sanctuary city. It seems a lot of folks who hear this and what you're proposing thinks this will make us a sanctuary city. And again, you're saying it wouldn't go that far.
we can talk a legal conversation, we can talk a political conversation.
Yeah.
Legally, there's no way that it makes us a sanctuary city. I understand that people have concern about the concept of sanctuariness. That is a deeper conversation, but legally, we would not lose any federal funding. We would not be deemed a sanctuary city. We would not be on the wrong side of federal law in any way, shape, or form through passing this.
All right, we'll take a break, and we'll have the comments on Facebook. Again, we're at newschannel5.com if you want to jump in on that. You can also call 737-7587. One of the co-sponsors, Bob Mendez, with us, the councilman behind the ordinance that is going to be due for a third reading. I think you said July 6th, because we're at the 4th of July, so they're going to do it on Thursday. So we'll be back with more right after this. Stay with us.